I'm Lindsay, and I'm here to talk to you today about citizen science. So I bet you're wondering, what is citizen science? Well, citizen science is when people in a community go and help do data collection and monitor or whatever scientists need in order to help ecosystems or help an environment. So why is citizen science important? Well, for citizens who participate in citizen science really gain an incredible amount of knowledge, and besides that, they're helping their community out and helping an ecosystem that normally is not in good shape. For example, my bio class went on a field trip to the tide pools, and one of the things that we got to do was go and monitor tide pools by putting these little squares down and counting the amount of a certain species in each square, and then calculating the biodiversity. Sounds boring, but it's actually incredibly interesting, and it's a really fun way to help scientists get the data that they need in order to preserve these species and these areas so that our ecosystem stays really healthy and so that we stay healthy. Another example of citizen science is simply by downloading the iNaturalist app. It's a really cool app. I have it on my phone, and it helps you to identify. You can just take a picture and it helps you to identify certain plants. I have learned so much through citizen science. I mean, one of my favorite things about going and visiting the tide pools was being able to see the different tidal zones. In an amount of like 3 feet, there was 3 very distinct habitats. On the top, where there was almost no water for most of the day, there was a lot of mussels and bivalve creatures. And then in the middle, where there was some water but not as much water, there was more things like seaweeds and grasses. And then at the bottom were the things that always needed water, which was like sea anemones. So I found this really, really interesting, and you learn so much by doing this. And it helps scientists out, so you're learning an incredible amount of information and really cool things, and then at the same time you're helping scientists and you're being able to help your community to monitor these species and these populations. Another thing I learned while on one of to Save the Bay as one of our field trips, and we learned so much about how soil and temperature and pressure and environment can impact how plants grow and therefore affect the ecosystem around it. So one of the things that we were in charge of doing was monitoring the soil, and so by monitoring the soil, I mean finding the pH of the soil, finding the moisture within the soil, the gradient of the soil, and in doing so, we were able to figure out the biodiversity of certain areas and how they can improve that biodiversity based off of the texture of the soil, the moisture of the soil, and what needed to be improved in order for a certain species of plant to be able to grow there, which in turn helps the ecosystem. Why be involved? Well, besides the fact that it's super fun, you're helping out your community and you're really improving an ecosystem or certain populations that are really in need. So it's a really important thing that citizens and people living in a community get really involved and active, especially in areas where they know that there's a lack of biodiversity, or there's deforestation, or there's pollution. Anything that can really help your community is so important.